What is going on, YouTube? It is your boy Faithful to God, and I am here with my brother Kemuel. And tonight we are going to be tackling the Dark Ages and Bad Meme Scholarship. And this is a prelude to our future video series on these two specific topics. So without further ado, my brother Kemuel, I wanted you to kind of, since it's really going to probably just be me and you tonight, I wanted you to kind of jump right in and give people a idea of what this video series is going to be about. So for those who might not be familiar with the topic, could you go ahead and give everybody out there a general idea of what the Dark Ages doctrine is from the one West Hebrew Israelite side?
Yeah, absolutely. What's going on, everybody? Hope everyone's doing good. The Dark Ages breakdown, you have two versions of it. You have the old version. That was the one that One West came up with originally. And then you have, I guess you can call it like the Neo Dark Ages breakdown, whatever you want to call it. It's the one that I learned. Now, the old Dark Ages breakdown is both, to be honest with you, is based on Revelation 20. So the old Dark Ages breakdown basically is that the 1,000 years in Revelation, where the saints rule with Christ, that's speaking literally about what they claim to be the Dark Ages. They call it the Dark Ages because that's when Black people rule. So it's dark because obviously Black people are dark. So the after the fall of the Roman Empire, they say that it fell in 193 AD. That ushered in the Dark Ages, and then the 1,000 years you had all the European kings and queens in Britain and France and Germany. All those would have been Black people that would have been ruling for 1,000 years. All the white people would have been in the caves. And they twist scriptures in Job 30, Job 31. They say all the white people would be in caves. So that's the old one. The new Dark Ages breakdown that I learned was that the 1,000 years is when the saints are going to rule with Christ in the kingdom. So literally in the future. In other words, it hasn't happened yet. And then they teach that during the 1,000 years in the kingdom, the white man is going to be in slavery for 1,000 years. After the 1,000 years, the white man is going to be released, and then they're all going to be killed. So it's basically, it's slightly different, but it's still kind of geared around Black people ruling. White people are going to be in slavery. Now, I don't know how many camps still teach the old breakdown, but I know for sure IUIC, the camp that I came out of, Future of Israel, I don't know which one ISUPK teaches. I know they teach the new breakdown, which is the 1,000 years is going to be in the kingdom. But the old one, that's what all the elders that you see in the one Western camps today, that's the breakdown that they learned, that the 1,000 years is literally referring to Black people ruling Europe for 1,000 years.
Right.
But they modified it, yeah.
I want to say that there are camps out there that still allude to the old breakdown. If I'm not mistaken, I think the ISUPK does still hold to remnants of the original breakdown because they do promote the belief that Israelites ruled Europe for 1,000 years, right? So, and I'm sure that this would be the case with just about all the camps, right? They'll allude to the fact that, or they'll outright teach it, like in the case of GMS, I know GMS openly teaches it, that Israelites were ruling Europe for 1,000 years, right? So that's why they call it the quote unquote Dark Ages, correct?
Right.
Because get it, the Dark Ages, because the Israelites are Black, and so they were ruling Europe. That's why they call it the Dark Ages.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that the doctrine, with the, man, I can't even say with the lone exception of the fraudulent Hebrew dialect.
Yeah.
Because there's so many faulty doctrines, but I want to say this is one of the top 5 faultier doctrines that the one Westers promote, because it's absolutely positively debunkable. I mean, there's so much there that's easy to refute. It's laughably and historically inaccurate in every possible way. And what we're going to do tonight is present the audience just a few examples of that. And also, I want to send a shout out to the brother Alfredo. Shout out to you. I actually have something planned with him that he did on, I think it was on BEC, where basically they did refuting bad meme scholarship. So they would take a lot of the scholarship that, or quote unquote scholarship, that Hebrew Israelites would use in the discussion group and in other forums and formats, and refute it. So they'll go through most of the quote unquote memes that we'll see online in some of the forums, the more popular ones. I'm sure most of you know that would be like the first Maccabees 348, which we're going to debunk tonight, by the way. We're actually going to do that tonight. And, just little things like that, man. Whatever reason, my thing just reloaded on me.
Kind of breaking up a little bit.
Yeah, am I good to go now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, yeah. So what I was going to say is that what we're going to do is we're going to kind of focus in on, the bad meme scholarship, going on that. And, that'll be something that I'm going to hopefully in the future do with the brother Alfred and also with a couple other brothers, because they actually did it on BEC. So I'm going to actually bring it on my channel so they can bring the information to the audience. But tonight we're going to show just a couple of examples of what that's going to be about. Bit two-folded. But without further ado, yeah, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I just want to say something real quick. Just for the audience to just understand a little bit better. If you always wondered why Hebrew Israelites always say, King James is black, Constantine is black, all the Roman emperors, well, after 193 AD, all of them were black. Beethoven was black, Mozart was black. It's all based upon the Dark Ages breakdown, or I should say it sort of branches off from that. So literally they think all these people, all these Europeans from 193 AD and before the Renaissance, all of them were black Israelites, basically. So that's why they always say that it's a product of that Dark Ages breakdown. So King James has to be black because the Dark Ages breakdown. And then they'll have those, they'll have the little source that they twist up to try to prove that. And that's what we're going to see in the video later on.
Right. Yeah, man. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna bring something out from the 90s, ironically enough, because a lot of this goes back to the original school from One West, where a lot of the camp dudes, the main leaders in these camps come from. What I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna screen share on this other account, and we're actually gonna take a look at a clip from Louis Theroux's Wild Weekend's Black Nationalist. This was from 1999, if I'm not mistaken. If anybody's seen my Black Hebrew, oh man, this thing keeps on reloading on me. All right, here we go. If anybody's seen my Black Hebrew Israelites False Year 2000 Prophecy video, a lot of the clips in two of the clips in the beginning were actually taken from Louis Theroux's documentary, which we're going to take a look at. If this thing would just stop reloading on me. All right.
Got it.
All right. Am I good to go?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. Hopefully this thing does not reload again. So what we're going to look at is something that doesn't necessarily show up because, everybody's seen the, it's going to take place by the year 2000, those little clips, because you have some other people that have shared them as well. But a lot of people haven't seen the end of this documentary, or the clip at the end, I should say. And the clip at the end is, we're going to see in a moment, Yeshaya, who was one of the seven heads. The seven heads were the seven, I guess you could say, foundational teachers within the school. So you had Arya, you had Shar, you had Kazak, you had Lahab, you had Yaquab, who was Arya's father. Who else? Let's see. Arya, Masha, Yaquab, Kazak, Shar, Lahab, and Yeshaya. There you go. So you had the seven. And these seven, again, were, I guess, like you could say, like the main dudes in the school. Yeshaya was one of those guys. Now, at this time, I believe Yaquab had already passed away. Masha had already split to form House of David Church. So you really just had, at that point, and someone else Lahab had already been kicked out. So you only had 4 of the original 7 there. Okay, so you had Arya, Shar, Kazak, and Yeshaya. And Yeshaya is the one that's going to be speaking in this clip. All right. Now, look at the ridiculousness, because this feeds into the Dark Ages doctrine. Now, this is just a small example of what people can expect from the video series that we're going to put forth. I want everybody to pay close attention and look at the ridiculousness that Yeshaya is going to do, because Yeshaya cut himself on live TV. Now, granted, I don't know if Yeshaya still holds to these viewpoints. I think I've seen him on Sonetta TV still trying to promote the Dark Ages and all that ridiculousness. But I don't know if he still holds to the more extreme viewpoints of One West. But this right here is complete and utter folly, as we're about to find out. So without further ado, if just let me know if y'all can see the screen. All right.
Yeah, you're good to go.
And all right, here we go.
You see a white image here in the front of the book.
Yeah.
But when you go to the back of the book, here he is, black. Can you read this for the BBC?
The monument installed in 1605 is discussed in relation to the Shakespeare.
Stop. Is discussed in relation to who? Alfred the Great? Constantine? No, William Shakespeare. Who? I can't hear you. This is not the Jerry Springer show. Who?
Now I'm going to do something again because I want the audience to catch it one more time in case it wasn't clear enough. Okay. I'm going to go back again. Now I'm going to start over. Here we go.
You see a white image here in the front of the book.
Yeah.
But when you go to the back of the book, here he is, black. Can you read this for the BBC?
The monument installed in 1605 is discussed in relation to the Shakespeare.
Stop. Is discussed in relation to who? Alfred the Great? Constantine? No, William Shakespeare. Who? I can't hear you. This is not the Jerry Springer show. Who?
Okay, so it was cutting out a little bit. So basically, all right, can you hear me? Yeah, it was cutting out a little bit, but basically what he's doing right there is he's pulling the old One West, pressure the person into, answering your question, basically. But did everybody notice harassing him? But did you notice that when he read what he read, it didn't say that, as we're about to find out in a moment, this individual right here, if I can go back, the individual in the book, because he shows two images, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me actually go back. I'm going to show it one more time so the audience can catch it. Okay. Oh man, this thing dropped out again.
Oh, it dropped out. Okay.
Yeah, hold on. Let me do this again, man. Oh man.
But yeah, just to explain what's going on. If you notice, he's harassing the dude and showing the guy two images. So what he's saying is that the front image that he showed, that's the whitewashed version of, I think, what is that, Shakespeare that he's showing? And then
the
other
first image was Shakespeare.
And then the other image, that's darker in his mind. So I guess that's the black image. That's the true image.
Yeah, here we go.
You're gonna find it.
Now here we go again. Yeah, we're gonna start this over again. Now, hopefully this don't drop out again.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, shout out to the brother Jay, man. We appreciate you, brother, right now. Yeah, so this image right here would be William Shakespeare, right? At the beginning of the book, he says, look, in the beginning of the book, they got a white image. Now, look what he says.
You go to the back of the book, here he is, black.
Now, look, this image right here, he says that this is William Shakespeare, that this is the true image of William Shakespeare. But we're about to find out right now that this isn't even William Shakespeare. Yeshaya literally cut himself on live TV. Who knows? This is 99, man. What was this? This is almost a decade. No, more than that. No, this is 20 years ago. Close to 20 years ago. Yeah. Yeah, close to 2 decades, man. 2 decades ago, the dude cut himself. Now, let me show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. Now, what I'm going to do is go over here and I'm going to screen share. Now, before I do that, I want to play that one clip again, though. The part where he reads it. Now, hopefully my audio is good on
Good to go.
Now, yeah, the connection on this one is shaky, bro.
No,
hopefully the same. No, it's on this laptop. It's shaky.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you notice that it keeps dropping.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is, and again, I'm gonna present. Hopefully it doesn't drop out again. Okay, so here we go. Okay, you guys can see my screen, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, you presented that one, right? Let me just make sure.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
All right. Now, hopefully the audio works. So let me make sure the audio is working. Yeah, here we go.
Can you read this for the BBC?
The monument installed in 1605 is discussed in relation to the Shakespeare.
Stop. Is discussed in relation to who? Alfred the Great? Constantine? No. William Shakespeare. Who?
Listen to the ridiculousness. The monument is discussed in relation to, not that the monument is of William Shakespeare. And we're going to find out why this is in a moment. Let me actually go ahead. So I'm going to go back to myself over here. Show you guys the folly behind this, man. Just give me a moment. This right here is proof that a large portion of Hebrew Israelites do not fact check their information at all. just terrible fact checking. Look at this right here. Okay. Now, I could not find the actual book because unfortunately, the more that I tried to, stop the video to try to figure out what that book was talking about, and I literally put in the words that Louis Theroux was reading, that Yeshaya had him reading, and I couldn't actually find the book. I found a transcript from this episode, but I couldn't find the book itself. But I did find this, because what I did was I took a screenshot of the image of the individual, the one that they claim was William Shakespeare. I ran it through Google Image and I found the monument, and it turns out that it belongs to John Stowe, as we're about to find out in a moment. Now look what it says right here. Now this is on Stratford Monument by M.H. Spielman, from M.H. Spielman's Shakespeare's Portrait in Studies in the First Folio from Oxford University Press, 1924. Now look what it says. It says, of course, the design of a bust, really half-length statue set in niche, especially in the case of a writing man at his occupation, when it was in its way almost hackneyed form of a sepulchre monument, almost a cliche. For example, you will remember the monument of the chronicler John Stowe, set up by his widow in St. Andrew's, Undershaft, in the city in 1605, from 12 to 16 years before Shakespeare's was erected in Stratford upon Avon. Now, I'm not going to read the rest of this. You guys see it on my screen. So let's click on this John Stowe. Oh, wait a minute. What is this? What do we have here? Now, what does it say up here? Hold on a second. Tell me if you guys can see my screen. On the left is a photograph of the 1605 John Stowe monument in St. Andrew's Undershaft Church, London. All right. Isn't it funny that all a person had to do was just, now granted, you know what these guys are going to do. Well, prove to us, prove to us that that's not that John Stowe and not well, let's look.
Shakespeare.
John Stowe, also Stowe, 1524-25 to the 5th of April, 1605, was an English historian and antiquarian. Oh, what's this that we have here? Is that not the same image that, let me go back to this, man. Let me do a little side by side, man. Let me do a little quick side by side. Okay. Am I still, is the other account still in here, or did I drop out?
No, you good.
Okay. All right. Uh-oh. Did I drop out again?
No, you good to go. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, for a second I thought I had dropped out again, man. That's what I was asking.
You coming clear on my end. I guess you can't hear me.
Okay, yeah. You can't be doing that now, brother.
Nah, you good to go.
Yeah.
No, the other one just dropped out though with the video.
Yeah.
That one just dropped.
Yeah, this is gonna be a little tricky now to try to get this one back in, man. But what I wanted to do is, okay, so I'm the other account should be back in here.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, so you had me kind of shook for a minute, man. I was like, I dropped out again. I said this thing dropped out again. All right, here we go. Notice this image right here. Notice this image right here. This is John Stowe. This is not William Shakespeare. And should I also make mention that this is not a black man? If my brother, could you do me a favor? Can you Google John Stowe? Okay, that would be STOW chronicler for the audience, please, so we can go ahead and make this clear. Somehow, Yeshaya thought that this was William Shakespeare. He thought that this image that you guys see on the screen right now was William Shakespeare, but who is it in reality? Well, let's look at it again. The reality is, this is John Stowe. Amazing that all this took was a little Google search. A little Google search in power, man. A little Google search. You know, but if you could, brother, could you go ahead and just Google John Stowe so the audience can see for themselves that this is not a black man?
You want the Wikipedia article?
No, not the Wikipedia. Just in Google Images, if you could just
Google. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Just share real
So
quick.
the audience can go ahead and see this, man.
All right, 1 second. How do I share?
Absolute folly and ridiculousness, man, from these cats.
Yeah.
I cannot for the life of me understand how somebody could possibly hold to the viewpoint that these dudes do, not researching anything. You know,
All right, can you see my screen?
yeah, pure and utter folly. Yeah. Let me go ahead and present you. All right. Now, could you actually, look at this. Apparently, this is a black man.
I think this is the same image right here. It's just a bit closer.
Yeah.
In fact,
and that's the one right here, brother. Look right here, so I can show the audience. Look at that.
Which one?
Pure and utter folly, man. Utter folly from these guys.
One's a bit less clear.
This was Yeshaya, one of the head dudes at One West, doing this live on air to himself. And you saw Louis Theroux. Louis Theroux was like, man, what is this? You know, he was like laughing. He's like, you know, he didn't even know what to think, man.
Man, look at that face.
Yeah. There you go. There goes your William Shakespeare. There goes your William Shakespeare, Yeshaya. If you still hold to that view, there goes your William Shakespeare. Just so the audience can see, the reason why he makes the appeal to William Shakespeare is because he is of the belief that, you know, the Israelites were ruling for 1,000 years, you know, until they realized that that doctrine is complete. I mean, it's utter folly, man. Utter folly. Yeah. Utter folly, man. But I just wanted to highlight that, man. Now, what I want you to do, my brother, if you could do me a favor, because, you know, I want to kind of segue from that now. Now that before we do that, let me be on record about something. If the elders at One West were not researching their claims and were presenting that sort of line of argumentation live on air, keep in mind, this was on BBC. This was a show on BBC that everybody, who knows how many millions of people were watching back then, and these guys were cutting themselves in this fashion. And that's just one example, just one itty bitty small one. Matter of fact, you know what, brother? I think we had even taken some screenshots. Can you do me a favor and show can you show Yeshaya's hands, man?
Oh my goodness. All right. Let me
you gotta show this one. I mean, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, I'm not trying to make it personal, but man, there was something off about that dude.
Yeah. All right.
Real off about
it. Let's see. This dude looking kind of weird, man. All right, can you see this?
Now, this is actually from the same documentary. Look at this dude's hands, man. Look at this.
Oh my God.
What is this? Yo, this dude got like Lee press-on nails or something. What is this?
Can you see the next one? Look at this.
Yeah, look at this, man. Yo.
Bro.
I'm telling you, man.
You got the acrylic nails on. Look at this
guy. Looking like a pimp, man. What's going on with this dude? Hey,
bro,
show
I'm
the
trying
comp.
to figure out how this was.
Hey, yeah, there you go. Hey, zoom in, man. What is yo? I'm really not trying to make this personal, but I really think there was something wrong with this guy back then, because it's yo. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to the audience out there. I'm not making this personal. I just found that very intriguing in light of the fact that he's making all these claims, man. Like this dude, like yo, this dude looked like a corner pimp or something, man. Like, you know what I'm saying?
This was so loud, man.
Son got that pawn shop jewelry on, and you know what I mean? Got the Lee press-ons and all that, man. And got the conch. He looking like he got a perm, like a half perm, half conch, man. I don't know, man. You know, I just thought that was intriguing. Yeah. Something was not wrong. I mean, something was not right with him back then, man. But I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I just thought that was very intriguing. And it really, since these guys like to focus on image, and I don't know what, they wasn't doing that in your camp, right? They was, you ain't had dudes with Lee press-ons in your camp.
Oh, nah, bro, that kind of stuff would never fly in like a regular camp today. That would never fly. That's why I don't know how in the world that dude was allowed to look like that. Because that dude, I mean, I don't want to say the word, man, but the audience know what he looked like. And, bro, it looking kind of off. I'm going to just be honest with you. I'm going to be honest.
Man, I don't know what that's about, but I want to say this, though, man. I don't know how you segue from that, but yeah, I do want to say this, though, but not to focus on his appearance. I think that his arguments are as faulty as those Lee press. I mean, that stuff just, man. I mean, man.
And let me just say too, just so I could be on the record, on a more serious note, nobody is denying the fact that you have prominent people of color throughout the Middle Ages. No one is denying that. I don't know why they think Christians trying to like hide that under a rock or something. That's not a secret. I mean, a lot of people don't know that. I'm going to be honest, but that's not a big secret that the world is trying to hide. But the idea that all white people were in caves and that's why it's called the Dark Ages, that's ridiculous.
And everybody of significance was black and Israelite at that, because the doctrine really promotes the belief that all these prominent figures were Israelites. But meanwhile, according to the same camp doctrine, all the Israelites are supposed to be under curses, and they're supposed to be under the stranger. The stranger shall rise up very high and you shall rise down very low. How does that make sense in light of that Dark Ages doctrine?
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
We're going to delve into that issue when we do the video series, which is going to be happening sometime soon. I'm not going to give an exact date, but you guys can definitely expect it sometime in the future. But that little piece right there undermines that entire doctrine. Just that one little thing, because it shows that if we can show just that, what makes people think that they're not getting other things wrong? And let me tell you something, man. I've seen other dudes from these like other groups like that came out of One West. Like you got this guy Danyala who had a whole series based on that. We're going to be tackling all those little claims. And I don't think people from the One West side realize that they're debunkable. I think a lot of these guys are just parroting what they saw and, trying to find any little minute piece of confirmation bias. But they're going to find out that those doctrines really don't stand up to actual historical fact checking in light of factual evidence, especially if you start reading. I mean, you saw what this guy was doing in this little clip right there, trying to isolate the usage. What did he say? In association with, or something like that.
Yeah.
In relation to the monument of William Shakespeare, trying to make it seem like that was talking about that this dude right here, this dude was somehow William Shakespeare, when this is John Stowe. Crazy, man. But let's go ahead and do something, my brother. If you could do me a favor, can you actually pull up? Let's go and tackle another one. This one feeds into the Dark Ages doctrine, but it's also a part of bad meme scholarship. Can you pull up the first Maccabees 348 meme, the one that floats around everywhere? So it's got like 3 images, and in the middle it's got like a guy that's like painting. And let's go ahead and tackle that one if we could.
All right, let me see if I can
Definitely tackle that one, man.
You got it. You good? You got it in the side chat.
No. On my end, I the problem is that if you could go ahead and pull it up on your end, because I know that you probably do. You have it on your end. If not, I can see if I could pass it off.
No, I don't. If you could pass it off to me, I can screen share it.
Okay. But while I'm doing that, could you go ahead and tell the audience about, for example, maybe some of those examples of bad meme scholarship, man? Like, how many times when you were in Future Word of Israel would you see fellow camp members sharing these memes and stuff, and you would just be like going along with it just because it's what everybody's doing, and all that.
Oh yeah, all the
and then
time.
Not even questioning it.
Yeah, this one is one that I'm extremely familiar with, because this one I saw this. This was probably one of the first memes I ever saw. The Hitler one, I'm a bit more. That was a bit like new to me. I say was a Hebrew Israelite myself, but this one, man, this was like the first meme I ever saw, and nobody double checks it. Nobody looks into the information. They never tell you where it comes from. They never tell you who makes the meme. They just show it, and everyone just goes along with it. So yeah, here we go.
Right. Yeah, hold on one second. Let me actually do something before we do that. I actually got to reload over here mine. There we go. All right, tell me if you could see my screen. I'm gonna go ahead and now look what it says. Original painting of Christ. I want everybody to focus in on this right here. You see what this says, right? Original painting of Christ. You see this figure, right? And then you see this over here where it says changing the painting of Christ, right? Notice something just off the bat. This right here, this image right here is not this image over here on the left. It's not the same image. And it says new painting of Christ. And it says the Renaissance. Now, let me show you the utter folly in this meme. First of all, the first guy here isn't even an icon of Christ. The one on the left, this one right here, this guy, this isn't Christ. This is actually St. Nicholas. Now, let me actually do something real quick. Stop presenting. I'm going to go ahead and pull up this one of St. Nicholas, if you just give me a moment. And let me tell you something. Kim, I really feel like dudes is not doing the fact-checking these claims at all. No. Like, there is no fact-checking of claims when it comes to these kind of faulty little breakdowns, man. Yeah. And for example, man, when I saw this image, like just looking at it, you can already tell, like, man, this, like, something's off about this, right? Now, granted, if you're in the camp, you're gonna just go along with the narrative. But looking at the image, I thought to myself, obviously, I'm not a part of a camp or anything like that. So I'm looking at this and thinking to myself, something's off. And we're also going to deal with that verse, by the way. We're not just going to deal with the meme and the images. We're actually going to deal with that faulty breakdown. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull up St. Nicholas icon. All right. One moment. And I'm going to go ahead and present. Okay, I got it right here. Now look at this, man. All right, let me look at this. This is crazy. Okay. Tell me if you can see my screen.
Yeah, we got you.
Look what it says right here. St. Nicholas from the Piscop school, 15th to 16th century. Look at this. They think this is Christ. This is St. Nick. This is St. Nicholas. This is an icon of St. Nicholas, and it's not even from his time. It's from the 15th, 16th century, man. Right. You're talking about like 1,000 years after his time and stuff, man. Okay, that's the first one. That's the first refutation right there. That whoever made this meme had no idea what they were talking about. All right. Now, if we go back, I'm going to go back to that same meme. I want everybody to take a look at this. I'm going to break this one down to the nitty gritty, man. Ain't going to leave these guys with nothing. I'm going to leave these guys with nothing to argue. Changing the painting of Christ. First of all, if you notice, the individual that's right here, the guy that's right here,
Hey,
this
Facebook, check
guy.
the side check real quick.
All right. If everybody can look at this image right here, this guy right here is a Eastern Orthodox dude. This is a Eastern Orthodox priest or whatever, and he's drawing a completely different icon down here, which I'm zooming in on. I don't know if the audience can see it. He's actually drawing a completely different icon than the one up here. This one up here is of, well, I guess you could say Christ, even though nobody has a photograph, an actual like Kodak picture of Christ. But the one that he's drawing down here is not even Christ. This image right down here is a completely different person. And up here, when you look at this one up here is of Christ. But somehow they're trying to make it seem like, oh, look at this. He's taking the image of Christ and he's painting it white. And that's not what he's doing at all. He's painting a completely different icon altogether. All right. Now, if anybody wants, they could actually look at a documentary by, I believe it's 60 Minutes, if I'm not mistaken, should be on YouTube, of the monks and priests of Mount Athos. And basically it'll show you how these individuals make, images or icons, daily, it seems. They constantly painting and making these things. Now, the interesting part is this. I just lost my space. Okay, here we go. Now, the one on the right, which is the so-called traditional image of Christ, the one that the camps claim is Caesar Borgia, which is another topic that we'll definitely get into once we deal with the series. They'll say that the guy in the middle was painting this image right down there of, the Christ in the background, which they claim is the first image, when we just found out that one on the left is actually St. Nicholas. It's not even an icon of Christ. And they'll say the one on the right is actually Jesus being whitewashed, not realizing that the image on the right, the icon on the right, isn't even from the same iconography style. It's not even from the same denomination, because the individual in the middle is an Eastern Orthodox person, and the image on the right is actually a Roman Catholic icon of El Corazón Sagrado, or the Sacred Heart. And it's an image of Christ from, I want to say, like the 17th century, man. Actually, let me go ahead and look for that right now to be accurate. But needless to say, this is what this is. I mean, this is sad, man. This is sad that whoever made this meme had no idea what they were talking about. Okay, so this would be what they call the Sacred Heart, right? Sacred Heart. And I'm gonna go ahead. Or if you could do me a favor, Kemio, can you go ahead and pull up Sacred Heart in Google Images?
Sacred Heart.
Go ahead, because I know there's a Wikipedia article that deals with that. Sacred, I think, Sacred Heart icon.
Okay, I got it. Sacred Heart icon.
Yeah, there's actually a wiki article that deals with the Sacred Heart. I'm actually trying to pull it up on my end as we speak.
All right, you want me to share it? Because I got it.
Okay, you got it? Yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, so this is, yeah, I'm all right. I'm clicking on you right now so you could present.
You see?
Yep, there you go. So the Sacred Heart, right? Yeah. So what I want to do is I want to find that specific one though. If I can go ahead and show the audience out there. And what I want to do is actually type in Sacred Heart image as well, so people can get an idea. That should be the so-called, yeah, Sacred Heart. Here's the article. Let me see. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and I actually got the wiki article for Sacred Heart. Okay. Got a lot of windows open. I do apologize. All right, here we go. And this would be the what they call the Sacred Heart. Now watch this. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see.
All right. Now hold on and let me go ahead and actually find the relevant article. Here we go. It says the devotion to the Sacred Heart, also known as the Most Sacred Heart of Jesus, sacerticium cor Jesu in Latin, is one of the most widely practiced and well-known Roman Catholic devotions, taking Jesus Christ's physical heart as the representation of his divine love for humanity. This devotion is predominantly used in Roman Catholic churches and in a modified way in some High Church Anglican, Lutheran, and Eastern Catholics. The devotion is especially concerned with what the church deems to be the long-suffering love and compassion of the heart of Christ towards humanity. Okay, so if you see right here where it talks about the devotion during a series of apparitions between 1673 and 1675, so roughly 17th century. Okay, so with that being said, all right, that isn't, these aren't even from the same icon tradition, and yet the individual who made this tried to make dude in the middle like, oh, that's what they did. The first one was Jesus. Let me actually find it again, man. This is ridiculous, man. Utter folly, man. Utter folly. Okay, so here we go again. So they'll claim that the dude on the left right here, this dude, is Christ. You see what they said, original painting of Christ, when this is actually an image of Saint Nicholas from the 17th century. The dude in the middle is an Eastern Orthodox priest who's making a completely different icon on the bottom from the one from either one of these in the background. Isn't it funny that there's another one in the background, and then somehow they're trying to make it seem like this one right here is oh, see, look, he's taking Christ up here, you know, and he's painting him white, and that's not what he's doing at all. He's making a completely different icon. And then this one on the right is again the Sacred Heart icon from Roman Catholicism. And it's from the 17th century, roughly around the same time. The one over here, actually, I should say this one is from the 16th, the first one. The other one is from this one right here in the end is from the 17th century. But this is amazing that these people, man, I'm like, how are these people not Googling this to try to just fact check themselves, man?
Sloppy, man. But it shows you how biased they are to prove their point. They're so desperate, they're willing to just basically throw out all logic to prove their point. And you just sloppily put together random images to prove your point. And that's what they, because a lot of times they have good books. I noticed that with some Hebrew Israelites, they have good material, but they're so sloppy and they're so desperate, they read their own ideas into the book, essentially. So they come to a conclusion that the art or the book isn't even trying to portray, basically. Right. So yeah, it's just desperation.
And let's do something and actually refute the verse that they're trying to use, because this is what the camps will try to use to claim. See, the white man whitewashed everything during the Renaissance, you know, because the Renaissance is when the white man took control and then he started, you know, whitewashing all the images. And that's not what First Maccabees 3:48 is talking about at all. At all. My brother, could you do me a favor? Can you actually pull up First Maccabees chapter 3?
Yeah.
And let's read this in context, man. And we're actually going to show another translation to drive this point home, because you know these guys don't deal with anything but that, you know, King James. They think King James is like the only English translation that there is.
Let me just share it real quick. There we go.
All right. So if you could,
all right,
matter of fact, let me do something because I'm actually trying to get there myself. If you do me a favor, my brother. Give me one moment. So I can get there myself. And while we're doing this too, you know, I wanted to just again highlight that all this took was just a few minutes of research, right? Yeah. You would think that some of these guys would try to research some of this stuff, right? like at least try to research it, man. Yeah. You know, when you were in the camps, when you were in Future Word of Israel, I should say, were you guys discouraged from fact checking claims? Like if somebody in the camp, if you were taught something, were you thoroughly discouraged from fact checking it and looking into it to make sure that it was actually accurate at all? Yeah,
to a certain extent. I will say this, and you know, we were talking about this earlier. They'll never tell you, don't fact check. You'll never hear them say that. At least the ones that I'm familiar with, they'll never say that. But it's implied by the way they treat you. You have to come to a conclusion that they approve of in order to be accepted into the community. So for example, if I fact check the information and my fact checking disagrees with what the camp says, then I'm going to be ostracized. So I can't do any sort of unbiased, objective research. My research has to conclude what you say, basically. So if I'm, so for example, we're looking at First Maccabees 3:48, right? If I was to say, well, wait a second, this doesn't make any sense because of blah, 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 they'll ostracize me, even though I'm doing exactly what you said to do, which is fact check. Because they always say, study for yourself, fact check, you got to read. They'll always say that. But you have to agree with what they say. So it's implied that you can fact check, but you got to be biased, though. If that makes sense.
Right. Now, if you could do me a favor, brother, could you go ahead and read from verse 42 all the way to 49? So
right,
start at 42 and read to 49. Yeah, let's get the context. Go right ahead, brother.
All right, so verse 42, it says, now when Judas and his brethren saw that the miseries were multiplied, and that the forces did encamp themselves in their borders, for they knew how the king had given commandment to destroy the people and utterly abolish them. They said one to another, let us restore the decayed fortune of our people, and let us fight for our people in the sanctuary.
Now stop right there. Now, what's going on right here is that we know that Antiochus and all these forces had set up shop basically in Judea. They had basically taken over the temple. We know that they had even set up an altar to Zeus there, right? All these things had happened. Basically, initially the people were being persuaded to, you know, become as the heathens, right? The Greeks that had come in. And a lot of the people were even being beguiled into it, right? Some of them were even, I think they were doing reverse circumcision, right? Because they wanted to join the gymnasiums and different things of that nature, because that's what the whole, well, I wouldn't say the whole, excuse me, the first few chapters of First Maccabees is dealing with the fighting off of Hellenization, correct?
Right.
I don't know if you can hear me, brother. Yeah,
I can.
So what ends up, So what ends up happening is that when you see these events taking place in chapter 3, now you're realizing that Judas Maccabeus and his brothers are fighting against this, because the Maccabees rose up and, you know, they fought against this. They were one of the first people, and they actually got other people to join them to basically preserve the people and the customs against these heathens, right? Against the heathen influence. So remember that the temple has been profaned, that all these things have happened. And so the audience will keep that in mind as we continue reading. All right, go ahead, brother.
All right, so we're in 44. It says, then was the congregation gathered together that they might be ready for battle, and that they might pray and ask mercy and compassion. Now Jerusalem lay void as a wilderness. There was none of her children that went in or out. The sanctuary also was trodden down, and aliens kept the stronghold. The heathen had their habitation in that place, and joy was taken from Jacob, and the pipe with the harp ceased.
Wait, read that one more time. Read that last verse one more time, please.
It says, the heathen had their habitation in that place, and joy was taken from Jacob, and the pipe with the harp ceased.
Now, where did they have their habitation? In what place?
The heathen had their habitation in that place.
Right, and that place would be the sanctuary, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That would be where the basically in the temple and all the different places throughout the land, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right, keep going, brother.
Verse 46, it says, wherefore the Israelites assembled themselves together and came to Maspha over against Jerusalem. For in Maspha was the place where they prayed aforetime in Israel. Then they fasted that day and put on sackcloth and cast ashes upon their heads and rent their clothes, and laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images.
All right, now watch this. What they'll do is they'll make this seem like, oh, see, they were whitewashing the images of the Israelites. But here's the problem. The Israelites had a very strict rule of images, right? Remember the second commandment, thou shalt not make any graven images of anything in heaven or in the earth, and thou shalt not bow down and worship them. So the Israelites had a very strict thing when it came to making images. So what would the heathen be whitewashing according to this logic if the Israelites didn't make images?
Right.
Now, here's the other thing that I don't think they've considered. Now, the translation in essence, even this King James translation of the Apocrypha right there, right? I'm gonna read it again. And laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their image. In other words, if a person reads this within the framework of the context, they could look at this two ways. Number one, they could look at it that the Israelites were laying open the book of the law, and just as other things were being, profaned and, maybe, damaged, that these Greeks had even sought to basically paint their images on everything, including the books of the law. One could look at it that way. Or one could look at it as the Israelites opened the books of the law, whereas the heathen had sought the images that they painted. How do we know this? Because we have other translations that give a rendition that probably more closely coincides with that and goes along with the context as we just finished reading. So this one right here, I'm trying to remember what translation this is, but I'll go ahead and read it. It says, and they opened the book of the law to inquire into those matters about which the Gentiles consulted the likeness of their gods. All right, so do me a favor, read 49. Let's finish it up with 49, man.
All right, 49. It says, they brought also the priest's garments and the first fruits and the tithes and the Nazarites they stirred up, who had accomplished their days. Okay,
now what have we read so far? Are we reading these people crying because they've taken our images and they've profaned our images and put white people in their place? That's not at all what's being conveyed there, right?
No.
Right? Matter of fact, brother. Keep reading, matter of fact. Go ahead and read like two more verses. Matter of fact, read to 52, man.
All right, verse 50. It says, then cried they with a loud voice toward heaven, saying, what shall we do with these, and whither shall we carry them away? For thy sanctuary is trodden down and profaned, and thy priests are in heaviness and brought low. And lo, the heathen are assembled together against us to destroy us. What things they imagine against us, thou knowest.
Okay, now one thing. Throughout this whole thing, have they said, and the heathens have taken our images and they've painted them white?
No.
We don't see anything like that here, right? Nothing even remotely close. What we do see is that they profaned the temple. Now, how did they profane the temple? By erecting an altar to Zeus, by even taking, swine's flesh and basically offering it up on the altar. All these things that were unlawful in the old covenant, right? All these wicked, abominable acts were being committed, because anybody who actually reads First Maccabees and doesn't do the, precept upon precept, that the camps, the misuse of Isaiah 28:10, not realizing that the underlying Hebrew text doesn't have the words must be, and they don't read Isaiah 28:13 to get the context of Isaiah 28:10. They don't realize that when you actually read the Bible as it's supposed to be meant to read, and the Apocrypha, that it's not saying anything remotely close to what they claim it is. And this right here is a perfect example. This isn't talking about whitewashing. This was talking about the Israelites fighting against these heathens who had come in, had profaned the temple, and were basically causing the people to err and stumble in relation to what the old covenant laid out.
Right.
Key word, old covenant. Amazing that somebody could read this and come to the conclusion that this was talking about whitewashing, and that somehow this was a future thing. This is a future prophecy, while it's in reality talking about the events that were taking place at the time.
Right. And we actually, I don't know if you remember, but we actually tackled this in a previous hangout that we did. Mm-hmm. And we mentioned the fact that at this time, how would the Jews store the writings of Scripture? How would they store their manuscripts? Well, it wasn't books, not at this time. It wasn't like everybody had their personal Hebrew Bible. You didn't have that at this time. They had scrolls. The scrolls would be rolled up and then they would store it somehow. On those scrolls, it wasn't like the little cartoons of the prophets. It was just the Hebrew writing. So you couldn't take a scroll and then start to scrabble what you wanted to write on it. You would destroy the entire scroll. You couldn't scrape the color, even if it had images on it. You couldn't scrape the color of the images on it and then put your own image in it. You would destroy the entire scroll. And it's weird that they're saying what the Hebrew Israelites that is. They're saying how these heathens paint all their images in the books, and you don't have any scroll that shows any heathen doing that. Why don't we still have these scrolls where the images are sort of turned white all of a sudden? And so yeah, you wouldn't have a book with pictures in it. That came way later. At this time, there were scrolls. So you have to think about this logically, and you have to think about it in the context that it's being written in. This isn't, you know, the 1600s where everyone, well, not even everyone then had a Bible, but at least they had a Bible then. Okay, so that wouldn't make any sense. And even if there were images in it, no one would really be looking at the images because everyone wasn't walking around with the personal scrolls at that point.
Right.
And so it's just illogical.
Now, what I'm going to do real quick is, if you could do me a favor in Google, I need you to type in Hitler knew the real Israelites were. I think just type it like that. And I want you to look at, if you could on just your end, if you could actually grab the image. It looks like there's like a poster board. So it's got like a variety of different, yeah, there you go.
This one?
All right, do you see that one right there? Yeah, there you go. Now,
this is a YouTube video.
Oh yeah, that's the YouTube video. No, but yeah, where it says view image. There you go. Now, I want everybody to look at this because we're about to look at another meme in a moment. But before we actually show the meme, actually just keep that one on deck. I don't want to jump ahead. Actually, just keep that one on deck right there. And what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna find the so-called meme that seems to be floating around. Okay. All right, let me actually I'm gonna try to, well, that's what I'm looking at on this computer over here. Hold on a second. And what I'm gonna try to do, I'm actually gonna try to play the audio clip in here. Hopefully it'll let me play. It won't start the lag. Because I'm gonna play an audio clip after this as well, or not even an audio clip, I should say a video. Right, so Hitler knew, let's see, what does that mean? All right. And, you know, there's a variety of memes, man. I'm going to just grab the first one. Here we go. All right, here we go. All right. And I'm going to present right now. Now, look at this, man. Look at this. This meme has been floating around. All right. Let me, okay, can you see my screen? All right, there we go.
Yeah, I got you now.
And I'll zoom in. All right. It says, Hitler said, even in his death, he will start World War III. One of his soldiers asked, okay, let me actually start over. Hitler said, even in his death, he will start World War III. One of his soldiers asked, how? Hitler replied, the day mankind finds out what I was trying to defend this nation, Germany, from, that's the day World War III will start. For on that day, mankind will learn that I was trying to save my nation from the Freemasons, the Illuminati, and the Jews. For if Americans wins man, whoever wrote this, man, for if Americans wins the war, then they will conquer the world and forever be a slave to the Jews, and they will try to conquer God. What?
Oh my goodness.
Do you know who America has in its possession? Oh man. No, the soldier replied. The Americans has the Americans, hold on a second. The Americans has the jewels of God. The Americans have stolen God's precious jewels. What do you mean, his precious jewels? The soldier asked. Hitler said, America has stolen the get it? The Jews. The Jews of God. All right, why is this thing not letting me scroll down? Hold up. All right, here we go. It stole the Jews of God, his jewelry, the Negroes. They are the true Hebrews. All right, now watch this. Let me show you. Anytime you ask anybody to give you any verifiable proof of that quote, nobody can do it with the exception of taking you a blog, and the blog doesn't have a citation. So guess what? There's this one blog that actually has this quote, and do you know what it uses as its backup? A video from Aria at One West, reading from Time magazine. So what I'm gonna do right fast, man, I'm gonna actually pull it up on my end.
Broadway, Fifth Avenue, the diamond industry. What did Adolf Hitler call him? Look at it. That is the German word for bastard, brothers and sisters. That is the German word for bastard. Did Adolf Hitler that the real Jews are black? Yes. And that the ones that were calling themselves Jews are what? Imposters. And there is a passage in the records of the real Jews, which is called the Bible. Where God says in Zechariah chapter 9, verses 6, and a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod, and I will cut off the pride of the Philistines. Did Adolf Hitler know that? Yes. Who are the bastards today? The ones that are not Israelites, the so-called Jews. It's in the records. We're not making this up. What record book are we looking at? The Nazis, by Time Life Books. Who put this together? The scholars among the serpent.
I'll play the whole thing. All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. All right, so this is what they try to use to back themselves up. Now watch this. Go ahead and show that image that you had, man.
Okay.
We're about to find out that Hitler actually believed that those Jews in Germany were actually real Jews.
All right, can you see my screen?
Yep. There you go. Now, this is actually from the book. Now, what Hitler tried to do was he took the Bible and he looked at the various intermarriages between the Israelites. For example, Joseph having an Egyptian wife. For example, Judah having a Canaanite wife. All these different intermarriages. Moses having an Ethiopian wife. All the different intermarriages that took place between the Israelites. You know, Esther being married to the king of Persia. For goodness gracious, she was married to a Persian. He looked at all these examples and then he tied it together. For example, if you look right here where it says Hamitic, notice he says Hamitic, he has Oriental, and there's one that should say, well, he has the word for Negro, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what that word up here is up, you know, with those weird looking people. But basically what he tried to say was, based on these various intermarriages from the scriptures, that the Jews in his country were not a pure race because they had intermingled. Notice that he has the word Judan or Jude. Notice that he doesn't have so-called Jew because he actually believed that. And notice that all these images, look, the Hamite, the Oriental, the Negro. Well, you know, I hate to use that terminology, but it's the one that he used and people were using in their racism at the time. But the Negro, quote unquote, and whatever that is in the middle, I want to say that's probably European, or who knows what that is, because he was looking for an excuse to basically say that he wanted to create a pure Aryan race, right? He had the whole concept of a pure, undefiled Aryan race, and he used this as propaganda against the Jews to say that they were a quote unquote bastard race because they had intermarried with all these groups of people, which is exactly what we see in the scriptures. Question: why is Hitler using this as the basis, and why is he using, again, those examples from scripture to attack the Jews if the Jews in Germany weren't really Jews? I don't think the guys that made this meme understand that.
Right. And number one, why would this white guy, why wouldn't he just attack the real Jews?
Right. And let me tell you something. You know what's crazy? The guy who decided to make the blog post, which, let me see if I could find that blog post, matter of fact. The person who made the blog post shared that video from Aria. Why in the world would you back yourself up with Aria of all people? And second of all, because he uses the book World. And anytime I've asked these guys, have they actually looked at the book? Because there's actually somebody on YouTube who had at one time, I think, had shared the book, and he was going through the book, literally going through the book. And even though this is right there smack dab in the book, somehow these dudes overlook it, or they try to pretend it's not really there because it doesn't fit the narrative that they're pushing. The fact of the matter is, Hitler very much believed that the people who lived in his country were very much Jews. He did not believe they were, quote unquote, so-called Jews. And isn't it interesting that he says, look, here's another one that cuts them. He's saying that the Negro is connected to the Jew. What do you do with that? Hebrew Israelite proponents out there who hold to the viewpoint that, the Jews aren't Negroes. Well, Hitler believed that they were mixed with Negroes. What do you do with that? How do you get around that? How do you get around the fact that Hitler believed that the Jews had black blood, black people blood in them? And by the way, for people who are wondering, do me a favor, brother. Zoom out. Let's tackle something else since we're actually dealing with this. People are going to say, well, look, there Hitler's making a distinction between the Negroes and the Hamites. That means the Negroes aren't Hamites. And they don't realize that Hitler also subscribed to the Hamitic hypothesis. Let me explain what the Hamitic hypothesis is, because you have a lot of people who will make a very faulty appeal to Zondervan's compact Bible dictionary entry on hand, right? If you could stop presenting for a moment, brother. Yeah. Let's actually tackle that real quick. And then we're going to show something else that's going to just show that meme is just completely sloppy. Obviously, we've already debunked it, but we're going to just overkill it and go all the way in. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. I don't have to use Wikipedia, by the way. I actually have a article from Cambridge University that tackles this issue. But I'm going to use Wikipedia just for the sake of being fast, man. I'm going to point something out. Okay, let me actually find the article for Hamitic. Just give me a moment. Okay. Give me a moment, my brother. And what I want to do is I want to show the audience that anybody making this illogical claim, well, the Hamites can't be Negroes because Zondervan says that, that he was the progenitor of the dark races, but not the Negroes, and they don't realize that it uses the Hamitic hypothesis. Now here we go.
This is extremely racist.
Extremely racist. All right, here we go. This is the article on Hamites. It says right here, or I should say Hamitic or Hamite. There we go. Hamitic hypothesis. Many versions of this perspective on African history have been proposed and applies to different parts of the continent. The essays below focus on the development of the ideas regarding the peoples of North Africa, the Horn of Africa, the African Great Lakes. However, Hamitic hypothesis operated in West Africa as well, and they changed greatly over time. In the mid-19th century, the term Hamitic acquired a new anthropological meaning as scholars asserted that they could discern a Hamitic race that was distinct from Negroid populations of sub-Saharan Africa. This theory arose from early anthropological writers who linked the stories in the Bible of Noah's sons to a documented ancient migration of peoples from the Middle East into Africa. Richard Lepsis could coin the appellation Hamitic to denote the languages spoken by these early settlers, which comprised the Berber, Cushitic, and Egyptian branches of the Afro-Asiatic family. Okay? Through the examination of thousands of human skulls, Samuel George Morton argued the differences between the races were too broad to have been stemmed from a single common ancestor, but were instead consistent with separate racial origins. In other words, he argued against the belief that all men came from one progenitor, Adam. So he argued for a poly origin for humanity. And by the way, Samuel George Morton was one of the early proponents of pseudoscientific claims. A lot of Hebrew Israelites will actually read Black Image in a what is it? Black Image in a White Mind, and the book itself is highlighting some of these things, but because they don't understand the context of the Hamitic hypothesis, they'll completely miss this and not even understand it. But what I'm going to do is something real quick. Now that I've shown that, I'm actually going to show something straight out of Zondervan to drive this point home, that Zondervan's Bible dictionary, compact Bible dictionary, used the Hamitic hypothesis in its entry. Okay, and I'm going to take this from Zondervan itself. Okay, give me 1 second. All right, give me one moment.
It's very ironic that modern scholarship completely rejects the Hamitic hypothesis, and some of them are white people. But then the ones that accept the Hamitic hypothesis claim to be the ones that, or they're the ones saying that white people are trying to hide all this stuff. When you're actually the one that accepts a racist hypothesis, which is weird. It's kind of ironic. The ones that are saying that white people are racist, they're actually being racist.
Right. I actually want to find it because there's an entry around here somewhere, if I could actually find it, that says most of Ham's descendants are known to be Caucasian. It's you know where it is? It's in Zondervan's study Bible, and it's not just in the NIV study Bible, but it's also in their KJV study Bible.
Yeah.
In Genesis 9:25. But what I want to do, I don't want to just give the people my word for it. I want to show them the actual entry in that thing. All right. So while I'm doing that, my brother, and the reason why I want to show this is to tie this in with the meme that we just saw earlier. But while I'm doing that, I wanted you to, tell me, how many times did you use Zondervan when you were at the campsite, Matt?
Well, that's like the standard Hebrew Israelite edition right there. That Bible dictionary that comes along with the trusty red apocrypha. So everyone tells you to get the Bible dictionary and get the apocrypha. So that's the Bible dictionary. Now you can use other ones if you want to, but most Hebrew Israelites are going along with that one.
Yeah. Now I actually found the NIV one. All right, let me actually oh man, this thing is not okay. This thing won't let me go to it. Hold on a second. Yeah, it's not letting me go to it. All right, let me see if I could try something else. Yeah, apparently this before it would let you actually go to the New International Version. Now, granted, if somebody actually owns a copy, they'll know this for a fact. They'll know this for an absolute fact. All right, but there's actually, because before on Google Books it would let you do it, but it's not letting me do it right now.
Yeah.
And I know I got a screenshot of it around here somewhere, but to look for it now would be but basically this is the way that it reads. This is how the NIV study Bible reads, because I do remember it because I actually have it in a what do you call it, in a notepad. And it says, Noah's curse cannot be used to justify the enslavement of blacks, since most of Ham's descendants are known to be Caucasians. I'm going to repeat that again. This is from Zondervan's NIV study Bible. Noah's curse cannot be, this is in Genesis 9:25, in case anybody's wondering, and you can look this up for yourself. Noah's curse cannot be used to justify the enslavement of blacks, since most of Ham's descendants are known to be Caucasians. Now, remember what we read in the entry to the Hamitic hypothesis? That there was a group separate from the Negroid race. Now, watch this. Right. I'm really going to drive this point home. I actually have some books in my house. I have an almanac that actually makes a distinction and actually considers considers Hamites to be Caucasians. But I'm actually going to show, give me 1 second. I'm going to show this from this PDF that I have called.
I actually got the screenshot to get it right now. Let me see if I can.
Okay, you actually have it? Okay, yeah. That's what's up. If you could actually pull that up, that'd be wonderful. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show the article that I was talking about that deals with the Hamitic hypothesis. I'm actually going to show this right now. And this is something that individuals who parrot these claims have not even done a few seconds worth of research on. It's like, okay, so look what it says. Hamitic hypothesis, its origins and functions in time perspective. This is by Edith R. Sanders in the Journal of African History, Volume 10, number 4 from 1969, pages 521 through 532, excuse me. Okay? And this was accessed on, 8/5/2014. All right? Now watch this. It says the Hamitic hypothesis is well known to students of Africa. It states that everything of value ever found in Africa was brought there by Hamites, allegedly a branch of the Caucasian race. I'm going to repeat that one more time. The Hamitic hypothesis is well known to students of Africa. It states that everything of value ever found in Africa was brought there by the Hamites, allegedly a branch of the Caucasian race. It says, Seligman formulates it as follows. Apart from relative late Semitic influence, the civilizations of Africa are the civilizations of the Hamites. Its history, the recorded of these, what does it say? Its history, the recorded of these people and of their interaction with the two other African stocks, the Negro and the Bushman, whether this influence was exerted by highly civilized Egyptians or by such wider pastoralists as are represented in the present day by the Beja and Somali. The incoming Hamites were pastoral Europeans. I'm going to repeat this one again. I don't think anybody. The incoming Hamites were pastoral Europeans, arriving wave after wave, better armed as well as quicker witted than the dark agricultural Negroes. I don't think I need to go on, do I? I could just, this whole thing is just one like tremendous refutation of the idea that, well, the Hamites, but watch this. There's a part in here where the Hamites were actually considered Negroes. I could actually find it. They actually stopped being considered Negroes. Now look what it says. I want to show this part right here. It says, on the other hand, Christian cosmology would remain at peace because identifying the Negro as Hamite, thus as a brother, kept him in a family of man in accordance with the biblical story of the creation of mankind. But keep in mind that this also, look what it says. Look at it. Actually, look right here. It says, by and large, however, the Negro was seen as a descendant of Ham, bearing the stigma of Noah's curse, because there was this so-called curse of Ham. And that's what Zondervan tried to undermine. They tried to say Noah's curse cannot be used to justify the enslavement of blacks because most of Ham's descendants are known to be Caucasians. So they thought they were doing a greater good, but in reality, what they were doing is promoting a racist European hypothesis, which sought to appropriate all the accomplishments of the Hamites under the umbrella of the Caucasian race. And I could continue reading this, man. If anybody wants this article, I'll be more than glad to provide it. But this is the kind of stuff that I feel like Hebrew Israelites aren't even remotely. Wait, was I showing this on the screen this whole time? Oh, okay, well, there we go.
No, you're good.
So if anybody didn't get to see it, this is it right here.
Check the side chat and tell me if this was the meme you were talking about. I just
definitely. And so again, what I want the audience out there to know, if anybody wants this, I can definitely provide it to you. In fact, what I'll do right now is actually leave a link in the live chat, and anybody who wants it, definitely let me know. Message me, in my about section. Send me a message, and I'll be more than glad to send you the link to this article. But I find it interesting that you have these cats that'll make claims and won't even do their due diligence in fact checking it. Notice that I read Zondervan's NIV Study Bible saying that Hamites, by and large, were Caucasians. Isn't that crazy, man? Hamites are Caucasians, man? Word?
Yep.
So if anybody wants to know why Zondervan's Compact Bible Dictionary in its entry on Ham reads the way that it does, there you go. I don't think anything else needs to be said, because this is like. So how does this tie in with that Hitler meme? Well, there you go. Why did Hitler, again, going back to that, if you could actually show that picture one more time, my brother.
Gotcha. Let me just get it up.
That's actually from the book. That's actually from the Time magazine, World War II, the Nazis book. All right. Show it one more time.
You see?
All right, there we go. Notice that there's a distinction being made. That's why the distinction is being made. But again, this undermines their entire polemic completely and utterly. Now, man, I mean, yo, I'm telling you, man, I'm telling you, all this took was a little bit of Googling, right?
Just 5 minutes, man. 5 minutes.
Now,
even,
I'm gonna
even
do
the whole
something
thing
else, man. Yeah, I'm gonna do one more thing though. I'm just gonna overkill it now. I'm just gonna overkill him with this. Overkill this one, man. All right, where is that? All right, let me see. All right, now this is from Snopes. Snopes or Snoops, I don't know how you would pronounce that. Snopes.com. And all right, let me know if you can see my screen, brother.
Yeah.
Did Adolf Hitler say he would start World War III after his death? A quote attributed to the Nazi director about the start of World War III is a hoax perpetuated by people not inclined to check for themselves. It says a book about Hitler quotes him as saying that he would start a Third World War after his death. And this is obviously a false claim. Now look what it says. Same meme that we just read, right? It says in June 2017, a persistent hoax involving a falsified quote, supposedly from Nazi leader Adolf Hitler, about how he would start World War III even after his death, began to recirculate in meme form. And this is the quote that we had seen it earlier. This passage is frequently shared in defense of Hitler to bolster the argument that he was actually not racist and in fact that he believed black people were quote unquote the true Hebrews. The first iteration of this text we could uncover was published on a clickbait website called fmlgoneviral.com on the 7th of July, 2015. And I believe this is where I saw it. Hitler said even in his death, he will start World War III, right? Blah, 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 blah. We're not going to go through it. Although the clickbait site provided no citation for when Hitler allegedly made these statements, commenters on the page directed those Commenters on the page directed those curious about the quote's authenticity to the book Nazi World War II by Robert Edwin Hertzstein. And that's the one that we actually saw in the RER video, right? That he was actually reading from. It says other dubious sites immediately picked up on this claim and uncritically reshared the completely bogus Hitler quote along with its alleged source, clearly without doing even the barest minimum of research, such as opening the book in which the quote supposedly appears. Needless to say, this passage does not appear in Herrnstein's book. We could not find this passage in either the digital copy available via Google Books, nor the hard copy we examined. Page 132 of Herrnstein's book, The Nazis, features a photograph of Hitler, Joseph Goebbels, and others watching a propaganda film, a description of what this film depicted, as well as a few stills from the production. And there you go. The page, like the rest of the book, does not contain an argument suggesting that Hitler was not racist. Given his actions in the historical record, a case for his lack of prejudice would be difficult to make indeed. Or that he was kind towards black people. The hoax quote also appears to miss that racism can exist towards different ethnic groups. Instead, it describes a propaganda film that linked Jewish people to other groups, including black people. It says, Goebbels and Hitler personally appraised a new German movie. When the Führer complained that the film espousing the Nazi line was too scarce, Goebbels rushed a pair of anti-Semitic pictures into the production. In one segment of the Nazi instructional film, on the right, the genetic heritage of the Jew is purportedly traced to Oriental, Negro, Near Eastern, and Hamitic peoples. Hence, the film concludes, the Jew is a bastard. Below is the villainous title character of Jude Seuss, a violently anti-Semitic melodrama, spins chemes with his crony Rabbi Loeb. Movie hintings at horrors to come. To Joseph Goebbels, films were one of the most modern and scientific means of influencing the masses. Though the German film industry remained largely in private hands, every movie needed the imprimatur of the propaganda ministry before it reached the screen. And Goebbels became notorious for meddling with scripts, directors, and actors. In 1938, he set movie studios to work producing anti-Jewish films. In addition, a special team was assembled at the ministry itself to undertake a project called The Eternal Jew. The result was a virulent 45-minute, I don't know how to say that word, billed as a documentary and was shown to the audiences throughout Europe. The film featured a lingering look at kosher animal slaughter, imputing sadism and bloodthirstiness to the Jewish race. Jews were likened to rats and other vermin. They carried the diseases, warned the narration. Such films, which depicted the Jews as a plague to be eradicated, hinted darkly at the real-life horrors to come. Now look what it says. The propaganda film described. Hopefully I'm sharing. Hold on, I want to make sure I'm sharing. No, I'm still. I got you. So the audience has actually been seeing you the whole time. I do apologize, y'all. Yeah.
Oh man, I wasn't watching because on my end I can see your thing.
Oh, you can see my thing, yeah, but I'm actually showing you, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
No, it's all good, man. It's all good. Now look what it says. It says propaganda film. The propaganda film described in this book attempted to trace the Jewish ancestry to other groups of people, most likely to demonize other cultures outside of the Aryan race, not to absolve any groups or make anti-racist arguments. An article published by the United States Holocaust Museum explained that although Black people were not targeted in the same way as Jews, they were still persecuted, and Germany produced propaganda that painted Black soldiers as chronic rapists and a threat to the purity, quote unquote, of the German race. The fate of Black people from 1933 to 1945 in Nazi Germany and in German occupied territories ranged from isolation to persecution, sterilization, medical experimentation, incarceration, brutality, and murder. However, there was no systematic program for their elimination as there was for Jews and other groups. Following World War I and the Treaty of Versailles, the victorious Allies occupied the Rhineland in Western Germany. The use of French colonial troops, some of whom were Black, in these occupation forces exacerbated anti-Black racism in Germany. Racist propaganda against Black soldiers depicted them as rapists of German women and carriers of venereal and other diseases. The children of Black soldiers and German women were called Rhineland bastards. The Nazis at the time, a small political movement, viewed them as a threat to the purity of the Germanic race. In Mein Kampf, My Struggle, Hitler charged that, quote unquote, the Jews had brought the Negroes into Rhineland with the clear aim of ruining the hated white race by necessarily resulting bastardization, end quote. Isn't that crazy? I wonder if any of these guys have actually done just a little bit of research into this just to see how. Anyways,
doubt that.
It says the rumor that Adolf Hitler said that World War III would begin when the United States realized that the Black people were, quote unquote, the true Hebrews originated in an unsourced article published by a disreputable website, and which appears to loosely string together an entire ecosystem of impossibly far-fetched and completely unsourced conspiracy theories. Though the quote in the meme was attributed to a legitimate publication, the professed and most cursory research shows that it appears nowhere in the book cited. Amazing, right?
Yeah.
You would think that some of these guys would have just done a few moments worth of research, man.
No, man. It's really biased, bro. But you biased, willing to support anything.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. These Hebrew Israelites are going to realize very quickly that we're not the ones to play with, because we do our due diligence in researching these things. And again, if you self-identify as a Hebrew Israelite and you're not doing any of these things, trust me, this is not directed at you. We're not directing this at everybody who self-identifies as a Hebrew Israelite. Only those who would engage in this sort of faulty researching. I mean, I wouldn't even call it researching. It's just like parroting claims, man. It's like no fact checking being done whatsoever. Yeah, man. But with that being said, though, my brother, real quick, end this thing, because I just wanted the audience to get a taste. Now, granted, when we actually do this, the brother Jay will be back in the thick of things, helping us out. Everything will move a little more smoothly, and definitely appreciate the brother Jay, everything that he does out there. And y'all brothers out there, definitely keep that brother in prayer. definitely keep that brother in prayer. You know, he's just resting. But definitely keep that brother, you know, in you know, just so the brother will have a speedy recovery. But I will say this though, when we actually do the series, and there also is the one with the brother Alfred, which I actually spoke to him about, Alfredo. I don't think that Hebrew Israelites are going to have any more excuses about, you know, I mean, at this point, if you're not fact checking your claims, then you have no business making claims or assertions at all. If you're not willing to be as hyper skeptical about the things that you're parroting, you have no business engaging in any sort of argument for, or you know, presenting any sort of polemical view that you're not willing to actually, you know, examine, you know, critically, to look at, to pick apart. Because at that point, you're really showing that you're not about truth. You're just looking for confirmation bias. You're looking for anything. It doesn't matter how dubious the source. You're looking for anything. And that's not the hallmark of truth. And ultimately, let me say this as well. It's not just based on these little corny memes and things like that. A lot of these issues go very deep, even into the heart of the gospel itself. You know, my brother, could you actually, you know, before we close things out, could you actually maybe share your thoughts on this from, you know, your viewpoint? Because obviously you were a former Hebrew Israelite. You were a member of a One West camp known as Future Word of Israel, which holds viewpoints very similar to IUIC because they actually splintered off from IUIC. Could you share your viewpoint on all this that we've just seen, and maybe, you know, kind of give a contrast now that you are genuinely a believer, that you are in Christ Jesus? You know, looking back on it now, like, you know, what are your thoughts on this, man?
Yeah, when I was in the camp, like I said, my elders, my teachers, they never told me specifically, don't fact check. They would never say that. But when you join the camp, you're given this lens that you have to look at the entire world through. And it's a lens of everyone of any sort of prominence was black, and everybody else was white and in caves. And that's the lens that you have to interpret every piece of information from. So like how you're saying, well, you know, you hope that they're going to give this up, otherwise don't say anything. I still think they're going to use the same memes, they're going to use the same arguments. And the reason why is because their entire theology, their entire system of belief, it doesn't allow them to look at things logically. So they're not going to say, well, yeah, you had white people that were kings and queens throughout the Dark Ages. They're not going to say that. They can't. They're going to have to force all the people in the Dark Ages, during the Dark Ages, to be black people, black Israelites specifically. But yeah, when I was in the camp, I wouldn't fact check anything. If you told me this is what it is, I believe it. You told me Constantine was black. Okay, Constantine was black. I had no source for it, no information, but yeah, I believe it. You told me all the white people was in the Caucasus Mountains of Georgia, Russia during the Dark Ages, I would believe it. No source for that. Never had any evidence, no migratory patterns or anything. I just believed it. Until, you know, glory be to God for opening up my eyes, and I sort of started to stray away from the movement progressively, and I started to fact check things. I started to realize that so many things where's the evidence for this stuff? Why do I believe it if there's no evidence for it? Why do I believe Hitler said this stuff? Beethoven or Mozart was this and that, and King James was black? There's no evidence for it. The only people that say it are Hebrew Israelites. And so, yeah, when I started to actually study and fact check things, I realized that the entire movement was founded upon lies, essentially. I would say 99% of the stuff from the movement is a lie at this point. Very, very little of it actually has any bit of truth. But those dudes, I unfortunately, they have to believe in lies because the belief system doesn't allow them to believe in anything else. You know?
Yeah, and the unfortunate reality is that what's really driving the presuppositions that they have is the faulty belief of, well, I mean, first of all, in their viewpoint, they figure, well, we have to reappropriate everything because, you know, we're believing that we're the true Israelites.
Mm-hmm.
That means let's tear everything down. So the deity of Christ has to go out the window, salvation, all that. But the reality is that it leads down the pathway of heresy, because you end up denying who Christ actually is. You deny the gospel message. And I'm not saying this for all Hebrew Israelites. Let me again be on record. I'm saying this more specifically to the one Westers. But it isn't exclusive to the one Westers, because you actually do have moderates that unfortunately hold to very heretical viewpoints as it pertains to salvation. And I'm not saying who can be saved, but rather how one is saved. And also heretical viewpoints concerning, the nature of God, the deity of Christ. And so what ultimately ends up happening is that you have people who have no, I'm just going to call it, there is no discernment from the majority of the Hebrew Israelite movement. There is no guidance by the Holy Spirit. There isn't. Because the Holy Spirit wouldn't guide you into a heresy. And a lot of you don't realize that you're in heresy. And that's why when you interact with Christian brothers and sisters like ourselves who actually know the scriptures, and you're so shocked, like, oh, I never met a Christian that actually knew the Bible like you guys. You guys are so different. You're not like all these other Christians. And I'm thinking to myself, what is it that we're doing that's any different? I mean, we're believers. And as believers, we read the Bible. But I will tell you that there is a difference. The difference is that we are being guided by the Holy Spirit. That's why we do have discernment of the scriptures. That's why we can rightly divide the word of truth. That's why Hebrew Israelites, by and large, can't divide the word of truth. That's why they don't understand the Bible. That's why they misuse the Bible. That's why they have a warped view of history. That's why they do all these things, because in reality, what's driving the movement is a void. And that void can only be filled by Christ Jesus. And they have not come to know him yet. But yeah, that's all I got to say on that. My brother, are there any last words that you want to share with the audience?
Now we can pretty much wrap it up. I just hope for the Hebrew Israelites that are watching, because I'm sure the Christian brothers and sisters that were watching this, they were definitely edified. But I hope it's going to I guess you can say motivate Hebrew Israelites to start looking into the stuff that they spew out a little bit more, that they just spit out and don't even fact check it. Right. And so hopefully, that's gonna, push them to sort of repent. But I know what usually ends up happening is that they come up with a sort of twisted version of the old breakdown to sort of get around it. But I know one of the things that really helped me was listening to someone that sort of pushed me to do the research for myself. That was one of the most helpful things for me. And obviously the Holy Spirit had to open up my eyes, but because it doesn't matter what we say, unless the Holy Spirit converts them and regenerates them, what we're saying is like nothing. But I really appreciated having someone to test me and to fact check the information. So I hope that's what they do if they watch this video, and they just fact check a lot of the things that they say, because I guarantee you they're going to find zero evidence for it, none. And then they're going to start to rethink things. But with that, we can just close things up.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I do have one last thing I did want to share. And I've actually made mention of this to other Hebrew Israelites in the discussion group. We could sit here and argue all day, go, tip for tap in regards to, you might say, oh, that's just your private interpretation of the scriptures. And we might say the same thing to you. But you know what the tiebreaker is? When you look at the external writings of the earliest Christians, the disciples of the apostles, that would be your Ignatius of Antioch, your Polycarp, your Papias. All three of those guys that I just named were direct disciples of John, the Apostle John. And isn't it funny that these three men never taught what the Hebrew Israelite movement by and large teaches, especially the One Westers? And they were never taught what the One West movement by and large believes of itself. Isn't that interesting? Why was it that the earliest Christians, the earliest generation after the apostles, when they laid forth the foundation that would be the churches. You know, these churches that had bishops in them. Oh, and for you moderate Hebrew Israelites that keep saying, oh, Gentiles can be saved, but a Gentile can't teach an Israelite. I wonder how you get around the fact that these Israelite apostles chose Gentile bishops to be over some of these churches. But, you know, we could definitely get into that when we do the
not even the Jews believe anything that they believe in. Even the Jews that didn't believe in Jesus, they didn't even teach the nonsense that these dudes promote. No one taught this nonsense until One West came around. Now you had, you know, remnants of the doctrine early on that sort of, I guess, culminated in One West, but no one taught this until these guys came around.
You know something, you still had those people that put a heavy emphasis on Mosaic law keeping.
Yeah.
And even those people were getting things completely wrong because the apostles didn't teach their disciples what those people were convincing themselves of. And I think in ultimate, the ultimate way to look at this is like this. Again, I had mentioned this. A lot of these people suffer from self-esteem issues because of the horrors that did take place. And I'm not making excuses for the things that happened. We know that the events that took place during slavery times, those were horrible events. No one should ever make an excuse for those things. And what happened during Jim Crow and all the things that have happened, but they're all a result of sin. It's a result of sin, man's sinful nature. And a lot of these guys don't realize it, that even if they're the descendants of the victims of these things, the very seed of hatred that many of them have is a direct result of sin. And those who don't have a seed of hatred but are looking to boast and to brag in themselves and to think of themselves something, they don't realize that it's also a result of the flesh. It's sin. It's a sin problem because every one of us as human beings has a sin nature. That's why we need a savior to break that sin nature, to destroy it. The flesh must die. And the only way a person can crucify the deeds of the flesh is by the Spirit. But in order to have the Spirit, you must believe in the Son. And so the only thing I could say is this: we will continue to do these hangouts as often as possible to pull as many people out of the mindset that they're caught up in, the erroneous mindset, so that they will come to see the true light, which is Jesus Christ. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And no man, whether they are Israelite or Gentile, will come unto the Father except by him. And I would hope and pray that anybody who does not know the Son would be cut to the heart by what I just said. It would convict them, that they would break down and repent and come to know Christ as Lord and Savior, if it be the Father's will. And with that being said, for my Christian brothers and sisters, God bless you for always coming through, for showing support. If you're a Hebrew Israelite, I want to thank you for watching, even if we disagree. But I must be honest towards many of you based on the belief that you have. And I hope and I pray that, again, this will convict you. Again, I hope this has edified someone out there. God bless you all. Take care.